While I was on a business trip, my cruel sister moved into my penthouse, throwing out my belongings. You won't even notice, she scoffed. Last night, she called me hysterical. Why are movers here? I smirked because I just sold the building. Get out. The first sign of trouble was the silence. I had been gone for barely a week, one business trip, a handful of meetings, and a red-eye flight home. I expected to return to my penthouse as I left it, pristine, orderly mine. But as I stepped off the elevator into my private foyer, something fell off. No scent of my usual cologne lingering in the air. No hum of my smart system welcoming me back. Instead, the heavy scent of cheap perfume clogged my throat, mingling with something even worse, change. I pushed the door open. Suitcases, boxes, a pair of heels, worn down and 2 sizes too big for me, carelessly discarded by the entrance. The couch, my expensive Italian leather couch, had a gaudy pink throw draped over it. My paintings gone. In their place, hideous, oversized mirrors and faux modern prints that screamed department store clearance. Then I heard her voice. About time you showed up. I turned, and there she was. Lena, my sister. Smug, comfortable, like she belonged, like I was the guest. She lounged on my couch. No, her couch now, apparently, legs stretched out, sipping wine from one of my crystal glasses. The audacity. You look surprised, she mused, a slow smirk playing on her lips. Surprised wasn't the word. Livid was more accurate. I dropped my bags. What the hell is going on? She exhaled dramatically, as if I was the one being difficult. Relax. I moved in. You weren't here, and this place was just sitting empty. Thought I'd keep it warm for you. Keep it warm. My voice was ice. Where's my stuff? She waved a dismissive hand. Storage. Someone had to go, obviously. Your taste is just so stale. 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 My fists clenched at my sides. You threw my things out. Not all of it, she scoffed. But honestly, you won't even notice. I laughed. Sharp. Hollow. The kind of laugh that precedes either murder or something much, much worse. Get out. Lena tilted her head, feigning confusion. Oh, come on. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you actually live here full time. You're always off somewhere. And this place is too much space for one person. I thought, why let it go to waste? And anyway, she stretched lazily. It's not like mom and dad would want you to be selfish. There it was. The guilt card. The family obligation. The same manipulation she had wielded against me for years, chipping away at my patience, my boundaries, my sanity. I took a slow breath. Measured. Controlled. Mom and dad left me this penthouse. Not you. She pouted. Details. It was pointless. She didn't listen. She never had. I turned on my heel and walked toward my bedroom. At least that was still mine. At least I could. I stopped. My bedroom door was wide open. Inside, her clothes are in my closet. Her bags piled in the corner. My mattress, my perfect, expensive, king-size mattress, covered in her sheets. Something inside me snapped. I turned back to her, voice dangerously low. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. Lena sighed, setting down her glass with a loud clunk. You're being impossible. You haven't seen the impossible yet. She didn't move, didn't even flinch. She just smiled. And that's when I realized she wasn't planning to leave. This wasn't temporary. She had settled in. She had taken over. And she thought I wouldn't do anything about it. She was wrong. Very, very wrong. Lena's smirk didn't waver. If anything, it deepened like she was enjoying this. Like she had already won. I took a slow step forward. You're not listening. Oh, I'm listening, she said, stretching her arms above her head like she had all the time in the world. I just don't care. She wanted a reaction. She was waiting for me to explode. To yell. To fight her head on like we had as kids. Not this time. I exhaled through my nose, forcing my voice into something calm. Collected. Dangerous. If you don't leave, I'll make you. She laughed. Actually, I laughed. What are you going to do? Call the cops? On your own sister? She asked. Bad optics. You know how people talk. What would our relatives say? And there was again. Family. The leash she had yanked for years. The weight she always expected me to carry. She had no idea that I wasn't the same person anymore. I didn't argue. I just turned, walked over to the kitchen counter, and grabbed my phone. Lena scoffed. Oh, come on, not. I dialed. Put it on speaker. 911. What's your emergency? Lena's smirk vanished. Her eyes widened. You're serious? Hello, I said evenly, never looking away from her. I'd like to report a trespasser in my home. Lena shot off the couch. You wouldn't dare. She refuses to leave and has disposed of my personal property. She lunged for my phone. I stepped back. Sir, can you confirm the address? I opened my mouth. Lena ripped the phone from my hands and ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. We stood there, locked in a silent battle. My pulse pounded, but I didn't show it. I didn't need to, because the fear in her eyes, that told me everything. You want a war? She said, voice lower now. More controlled. Fine. You're not the only one who knows how to play dirty. And then, just like that, her fear was gone, replaced by something colder. She set my phone down carefully, then smoothed out her shirt, as if nothing had happened. You're not kicking me out, she said simply. I belong here just as much as you do. No, you don't. She smiled. A slow, cruel smile. See, that's where you're wrong. Then she turned on her heel, grabbed her wine glass, and walked away, into my bedroom, shutting the door behind her. I stood there, fingers twitching at my sides. This wasn't just entitlement. This wasn't just Lena being her usual, insufferable self. She was digging in. She had a plan, and I had no idea what it was. I needed to think, so I grabbed my keys and walked out. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting my hands tighten around the wheel, letting the city lights blur past as I tried to breathe. How had this happened so fast? I'd always known Lena was manipulative. I'd watched her charm her way out of every bad decision she had ever made, leech off people until they had nothing left to give. But this was new. I pulled into a dimly lit parking lot and drummed my fingers against the dashboard, forcing myself to think. I could call the cops again, but she'd just pull some sob story about being my poor, helpless sister with nowhere to go. She'd twist the narrative, turn people against me. No, I needed to be smarter. I pulled out my phone, ignoring the dozens of texts already rolling in, family members probably. Lena had wasted no time running to them with whatever lies she had prepared. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the one name I needed. Victor, a real estate shark, cutthroat, efficient, and most importantly, owed me a favor. I had a call. He answered on the first ring. Didn't expect to hear from you this late. I need a building sold. A pause. Then yours? Yes. A low whistle. Cold. I like it. Are you trying to make a statement? I glanced out at the city skyline. Something like that. Victor didn't ask any more questions. He never did. I'll make some calls. Expect paperwork by morning. I hung up, took a slow breath, looked up at my building, gleaming in the distance. Lena wanted a war? Fine. She just forgot one thing. I never start a fight I can't finish. By the time I pulled back into the parking garage beneath my building, I had a plan. It was ruthless, calculated, perfect. Victor was fast, a shark among guppies. By morning, my penthouse, and the entire building attached to it, would no longer be mine. It would be someone else's problem. And Lena? She'd have nowhere to run. I stepped into the elevator, watching the floor numbers rise. My heartbeat was steady now, my hands relaxed. The anger had burned away, leaving something colder. Controlled. The doors slid open to my private foyer. Laughter. I frowned. Lena's voice drifted from the living room. Light, easy, laced with satisfaction. And then, another voice. A man's. I stepped inside, quiet, controlled. Lena was perched on the couch, glass of wine in hand, looking far too comfortable. And sitting across from her, sprawled in my chair, was a man I hadn't seen in years. Jason, a ghost from the past. Dark hair, sharp suit, lazy smirk. The same smirk he'd worn the last time I saw him, when he tried to steal from me. I felt my jaw tighten. He turned, locking eyes with me. Well, look who's back. Lena beamed. We were just catching up. Catching up. The game had changed. I glanced at the coffee table. Documents. My documents. A deed. A will. My stomach hardened. I turned to Lena. What are you doing? She sipped her wine, unbothered. Oh, relax. Jason's helping me with a few things. You always said I needed better financial management. Jason leaned back, all lazy arrogance. I have to say, you've been very careless with your assets. He gestured toward the papers. A lot of loose ends. Lena grinned, which, lucky for me, means there are opportunities. Ah, there it was. I had underestimated her. She wasn't just squatting. She was trying to take everything. I forced my expression to remain neutral. Calm. Controlled. They didn't know what I had done. Good. Jason stood, adjusting his cuffs. Honestly, if you weren't so focused on running off to business trips, you might have noticed sooner. But you've never been great at keeping an eye on what's yours. I let out a slow breath. You shouldn't be here. His smirk widened. Oh, but I should. See, Lena and I have been talking. And it turns out, she has a claim to this property. I stared at him for half a beat. Then I laughed. Sharp. Cold. Jason blinked. That was new, me laughing. Lena frowned. What's so funny? I'll let the silence stretch. Let them wonder. Then, finally, I said, you're playing the wrong game. Jason's confidence wavered. Just for a second. Excuse me. I stepped forward, reaching for the documents on the table. Flipped through them, nodding as I scanned the forgeries, the signatures, the pathetic attempt at rewriting history. I tossed them back onto the table. Cute, I said. But useless. Lena's smile faltered. What does that mean? I took my phone from my pocket, opened my email, turned the screen toward them. Victor's message was already there. Sale finalized. Penthouse transferred. Full ownership, no longer your responsibility. Lena went still. Jason frowned. I smirked. That means this isn't mine anymore. I let that sink in. Which means it's not yours either. Silence. Then, no, Lena's voice was sharp, her wine glass trembling in her grip. That's not no. Jason's smirk vanished. You're bluffing. I scrolled down. Showed them the contract. The buyer's name. The timestamp transaction. I tilted my head. You were planning to steal something that doesn't exist anymore. Lena's breath hitched. You sold it. I shrugged. This building? Not ours anymore. The new owner has already arranged for a full security sweep. Locks changed. Leases reviewed. And your name? I smiled. Not on any of it. Jason cursed under his breath. You should leave, I said, cutting him off. Because in about 10 minutes, this place won't just be not mine. It'll be someone else's problem. And they won't care that you're my sister. Lena's hands curled into fists. I had one, but she wasn't going down easy. She slammed her glass onto the table, wine sloshing over the rim. You always do this, she hissed. You always think you're smarter, that you're better. Jason rose to his feet, adjusting his cuffs. He wasn't stupid. He knew when to cut losses. But Lena? She wasn't done. She stepped closer, eyes burning. Do you even care about your family? About me? I held her gaze. Do you? She flinched. Just barely. But I saw it. Her face twisted, 1,000 words warring behind her eyes. Words she'd never say, feelings she'd never admit. And then, she shoved past me, grabbing her coat. Jason followed without a word. At the door, she turned. One last attempt. One last strike. You'll regret this, she whispered. I didn't answer. Didn't have to. She left. And for the first time in weeks, my penthouse was silent. I let out a slow breath. It was over. Almost. Silence. For the first time in weeks, the air in my penthouse. No, the former penthouse was still. No cheap perfume. No stolen space. No fights simmering beneath the surface. Lena was gone. Jason was gone. And yet, something didn't sit right. I didn't trust easy wins. Especially not with Lena. I leaned against the counter, letting the tension drain from my body in slow waves. My phone buzzed. Victor. I answered. Tell me it's done. A low chuckle. Oh, it's done. But you got a small problem. My grip tightened. What kind of problem? A pause. Then, your sister's been busy. Of course she had. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What now? Victor exhaled through the speaker. She's been making calls. Pulling strings. And, get this, she tried to contest the sale. I stiffened. She what? Oh yeah. Barged into a lawyer's office, screaming fraud. He laughed. But unfortunately for her, everything's airtight. Too clean. Lena never knew when to quit. Victor continued. Word is she's desperate. Running out of people to leech off. He paused. But that's not what worries me. A slow chill ran down my spine. Then what does? Another pause. She's looking for something. Something big. My mind worked fast. Lena didn't lose quietly. If she couldn't take my penthouse, she'd find another way to get to me. I kept my voice level. What is she after? Victor hesitated. She's been sniffing around your parents' estate. My breath hitched. No, yeah. My stomach twisted. The estate, the last thing of value left in the family name. The place where all our childhood memories were locked away. I hadn't touched it in years. It sat empty, untouched, safe. Until now. I straightened. How much damage can she do? Victor sighed. Depends. If she finds what she's looking for, a lot. I didn't even hesitate. I'm going there. Victor's voice dropped lower. Be careful. She's desperate. And desperate people. A pause. They're dangerous. I hung up. I already knew that. The drive to the estate was long and dark. The city lights faded behind me, replaced by endless stretches of winding roads. The trees thickened. The air grew colder, and with every mile, the weight in my chest pressed harder. I hadn't been here in years. The house loomed in the distance, a towering structure of old money and forgotten history. The windows were dark, the gates slightly ajar. She was already here. I pulled in slowly, shutting off the engine. For a moment, I just listened. The wind, the creak of the old iron fence, the distant rustle of trees. Then movement, a shadow near the side entrance. Lena, she was inside. I stepped out of the car, moving quickly but quietly. The door was unlocked, of course it was. She never cared about barriers, never cared about what wasn't hers. Inside, the house smelled of dust and time. Empty picture frames lined the walls. Dad had taken down most of the family photos before he passed. Maybe he knew, even then, that Lena would try to rewrite history. I followed the faint sound of movement. The study, of course. The one room that held everything. I pushed the door open. Lena was at the desk, rifling through drawers with frantic energy. Papers scattered across the floor, documents tossed aside as she searched for what? She didn't hear me at first. Then my voice. Low, calm, looking for something. She froze. Her back went rigid, hands still hovering over a pile of papers. Slowly, she turned. I had seen Lena wear 100 different faces. Fake smiles, forced tears, calculated charm. This one was different. This was panic. What are you doing here? She snapped. I stepped forward, scanning the mess. Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. She swallowed. I don't lie. My voice was steel. Lena inhaled sharply. Then, slowly, a smirk tried to creep on her lips. A last-ditch attempt to regain control. She gestured to the papers. I just wanted to check some things. I stared at her. Then, without breaking eye contact, I reached for the nearest document. Read it, and my blood turned to ice. She wasn't just searching. She was looking for one thing. The original inheritance papers. The proof that our father had changed his will. The proof that everything had been left to me. Not her. My fingers tightened around the page. The weight of everything settled into place. This had never just been about the penthouse. It had never been about taking what was mine. It was about erasing what was hers. Lena watched me carefully. Her smirk wavered. She knew that I had figured it out. But she wasn't done. Not yet. Her voice was soft now, almost careful. Dad didn't mean to leave me out. I didn't speak. She took a step closer. You know that, right? I kept my grip on the paper. What I know is that he made his choice. Her jaw tightened. He made a mistake. No, I looked her in the eyes. Deadly calm. You did. Lena exhaled sharply, her mask slipping. For a moment, just a moment, she looked almost small. Then she turned, grabbed a single file from the desk, clutched it like a lifeline, and ran. I cursed, shoving past the desk and chasing her through the darkened hall. Her footsteps pounded against the wooden floors, her breathing ragged as she sprinted for the front door. I was faster. I grabbed her wrist, yanking her to a stop. Give it to me. She struggled, twisting and desperate. No, I wrenched the file from her grip. She stumbled back, furious. You don't deserve it, she screamed. You never did. I stared at her. Then, slowly, I opened the file. Inside, the last will, the final proof. The signature Dad had left behind. Undeniable. Unchangeable. Lena's last hope gone. She looked at me, breathing hard. Her hands clenched at her sides. Her face twisted in something between rage and defeat. It was over. She knew it. I knew it. For the first time in our lives, I had truly won. And she had nothing left. Lena stood there, frozen, chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven breaths, hands curled into trembling fists. But the worst part? Her eyes. They weren't just furious. They were desperate. You think this is over? She whispered, voice shaking. You think you've won? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I simply held up the will. Let the weight of cold, hard truth settle over the room. Lena inhaled sharply, her nails digging into her palms. I'm your sister, she said, softer now, as if she could still reach me. We're family. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I tilted my head. Did it mean anything to you when you threw out my things? When you tried to take my home? When you tried to rewrite Dad's final decision? She flinched. Good. The silence between us stretched. Heavy. Final. Then her mask cracked. Lena's face twisted. The rage, the frustration, it all boiled over. You always had everything, she spat, voice raw. The business. The penthouse. The money. Dad's attention. His respect. And what did I have? I stared at her. Choices, Lena. You had choices, and you made the wrong ones. Her breathing hitched. For the first time, she had nothing to say, because she knew I was right. Lena had spent her life manipulating, taking, stealing, not just things, but people's trust. And now, she had finally hit a wall she couldn't break through. Her lips parted, a last-ditch effort to claw her way back. But I was done. I turned, gripping the will tighter. Leave. She went still. I mean it, I said, voice like steel. Walk out that door, Lena, and don't come back. She didn't move. For a second, I thought she might fight, that she might lunge for the papers, try to rip them apart in some wild attempt to undo the inevitable. But then, her shoulders sagged. The fight drained from her body, like she had finally realized the truth. She had lost. Lena swallowed hard. Her gaze flicked to mine, something almost broken flashing across her face. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. The front door opened and closed. Just like that, she was gone. For real, this time. A week later, I stood in my new place. Smaller, quieter, mine. The penthouse was long gone, replaced by a sleek, minimalistic apartment. No stolen furniture. No lingering scent of Lena's perfume. Just peace. Victor had called earlier, giving me an update. Lena had tried to stir trouble, again, but with no leverage, no home, and no money. Her options were running out. Last he heard, she had packed up and left the city. Maybe for good. I should have felt relieved. Victory. Satisfaction. But all I felt was tired. Because no matter how much she had taken from me, no matter how much she had deserved to lose, there was still that small, aching truth beneath it all. Lena was my sister, and I buried her, not in the literal sense, but in the only way that mattered. For the first time in my life, she wasn't just out of my home. She was out of my life. And that was a different kind of loss. I sat on my couch, exhaling slowly. No regrets. No second thoughts. Just acceptance. This was the price of winning, and I had paid in full.